Hey everyone, Achil Rudolf here, and today I want to show you the speech I gave at my very first workshop. This is around 1.5 years ago, and I had already been coaching by then for a couple of years, but only in small groups and one-on-one. And this was the first time that I brought the larger community together and said, let's do an event where we speak about social skills, confidence, dating. And you can see I saw it as a kind of debut. It was my way of introducing myself to the scene. I talk about my personal history, my own view and my own experiences with coaching, and also about how I differ from other coaches that I had experienced. It's something that I am a little bit hesitant to share because I can see how I was still quite nervous back then going on stage. And I remember these kinds of speaking gigs would keep me busy for 1 or 2 days preparing, and then also exhausted one day after. So it was a real nerve-wracking experience for me back then. And I see how many filler words I use. I'm using and actually as my favorite filler word in that video. I also have this notebook that I'm looking at all the time. I have a not so professional audio setup. So all of this is feeling like it's from a different era. Sharing that is a bit vulnerable for me because I can hardly recognize this guy on the screen from 1.5 years ago. But at the same time, it's an opportunity for you and for me to see how much can change in the course of a year. And this is obviously because I've practiced this over and over again, and I've done workshops like this almost every week ever since. And I also practice my voice every single day. And then I look back at the recordings and I analyze myself and I find ways to improve. And so looking at a video like this for me is also great because I can see that what I'm doing is actually working. And it also gives me confidence that I can help other people achieve similar growth trajectories when it comes to social confidence in short periods of time. I still organize group coachings and workshops like these every week. And so if you want to be part of them, simply reach out. We have some of them in person, but also some of them online. We'll find a way to get you into the room. With that, let's crack into it. Hope you enjoyed the video.
I'm a 33-year-old Berliner, but I have Indian roots. My mom's from India. And I grew up here in North Berlin, and I was just really drilled to be a really good student. That was what my education and my upbringing was about, be really good at school. And I mastered that. I really got excellent at school. And I topped my school, topped my university, and then I thought, what's the next thing? Well, I'm gonna go global. I'm gonna go to the best university in the world. And I went to Harvard and I studied for a year, and then I got to know some professors and basically started working for one of them. And then they sent me to India, and suddenly I was in this project of 2 Nobel laureates, Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duflo, who are economics Nobel Prize winners. And after that, I felt like, okay, I'm at the top now. What's the next thing? I guess there's only one last thing. I can do a PhD degree, right? That's the next stage after you've done your master's and after you've worked in research. And then I went to one of the other best universities in the world, Yale University, and I did start my PhD. I got paid to study. Life was kind of good. All these smart ass brains around me. But inside of me, I was really lacking the social aspect of life. I didn't know how to have fun. I didn't know how to meet girls. And I never really went to a party and enjoyed myself. I just didn't know how to do that. So it was something that was nagging me for a long time. And I guess like most people, at some point, you start experimenting with drugs and alcohol. And that would really broke it for me. That's what really broke me free. I got drunk at the first time when I was like 22. And I realized, wow, this is what a party should feel like. I was dancing, I was suddenly able to flirt, I was starting to speak different languages, and it was really like a life-changing experience. But I had already kind of been indoctrinated in a way by my family that drugs and alcohol is bad, right? Because it's the Indian culture, you don't do that, you focus on your studies. And so I think that's one of the reasons that I immediately realized that alcohol and drugs can't be the way for me to break through my insecurities. It's got to be something else. It's got to be something more healthy, something more sustainable. I was also meditating already at the time because my parents also taught me that. It's also part of the Indian heritage. I started meditating when I was like 12, and that just doesn't go well together. Like getting drunk and meditation is basically the opposite. And so I said to myself, man, I want to figure this out on my own. I want to know how to have a really good time at a party without needing to take a single drop of alcohol. And well, that was a really, really hard and long journey. It took me a few years, almost a decade, to really feel like I got this figured out. I was a bit stuck at that point, and I didn't really get there on my own. And that's when I decided to actually put some money down, just like you guys did today, and do some coachings and go to people who knew much more about this, who had dedicated their entire lives basically to figuring out how to be in a club and how to be social, how to have fun, and how to attract women. And I went to London. I did a coaching with another coach of RSD, and well, it was interesting because he was just sitting there in a big room like this, and everyone was just in a circle, and he was just talking like for 6-7 hours. And he was just talking and talking, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I wanted to go out. I wanted to learn in the club. I wanted to be out and do the interactions. But I realized that what was happening was that just by seeing him talk and seeing him behave, I was learning. I was actually intuitively acquiring behaviors, and that was much more powerful than actually going out. I never really fully embraced all these influences. I never fully accepted them as my new role models, but I saw that a lot of the stuff they're teaching is super, super relevant. I have a lot of different views, but there's some wisdom in that, and I extracted that for many years. Combined with the more traditional, let's say, upbringing, the meditation, and all the spiritual stuff that was going on in my life, I found that to be a really powerful mixture. And after 3 or 4 years of implementing that stuff, those exercises, those regimes, all those routines that these people recommended, and then adding in all the meditation that I had basically been given for free from my family, I found a way to really get myself into the same kind of mood that I had when I was drunk. And even at some point, the same kind of mood that I had when I had once taken LSD or MDMA, and I realized I can actually work my way to that. It's an experience that for me was important because I saw what it can be like to be so free, so extremely happy, and so extremely radiant. But then I knew I needed to go there, and I went the hard route, and it is a very sustainable route because that's something you can do at any point in your life. That's something you can do right now. That's something I am doing right now, by the way. This is something I'm starting to do right now, and I will be doing this for the whole day. And this is also the point of this workshop, that you see other guys doing it in front of you, because it's something that is almost impossible to really explain and take apart. It's way too complex to put it all on a sheet of paper and learn by heart. It's much better learned intuitive in a almost oral tradition. I also had a lot of ideas for technology on the way. I've always had ideas for how to structure this process better, because I've been very engaged with it, but I saw all the imperfections in it as well. And I saw, of course, also the horrendous prices. Like, okay, 50 euros is not a lot of money, but for this kind of workshop, usually when you go to an established YouTuber dating coach, you have to pay 2,000, 3,000 just to be in a room with them for a few hours. And I thought, how can you do this? How can you make this more affordable? How can you get this stuff to the masses? And I always had ideas for websites, technology, applications. So I at some point started implementing them, and I started actually teaching myself how to code because I was so passionate about it. And I started building an application that helped me, myself personally, to stay motivated on this journey, because as you know now, I had to talk to thousands of women out there. And this is something that's really hard if you don't have that kind of motivation. And I said, I can probably automate the coaching experience, at least in a minimal way. And that's when the Novium app was born. That's the app that I built, and it's still live, and I still recommend it. All right, there's one last thing before we go into the introductions, which is the mantra, and you can't see it. It's a shame. Will someone see an actual whiteboard pen here? No. Mm-hmm. Okay, then squint your eyes and imagine it. The world is our playground. That's the mantra, that's the motto for today's workshop. And it's a really powerful mindset. It's not trivial to go out there and not see all this stuff going on as a thread or as a structure that's binding us, that's leading us. See it as a playground. It's there for us to have fun. It's there for us to have real freedom. And it's kind of a realization that I took from a festival. It was a Burning Man festival. Has anyone been to a Burning Man festival? So there's a real Burning Man in California, but there are lots of Burning Man festivals. It's not California, it's somewhere in the desert. And there's like satellite events. They copied the Burning Man idea and put it into practice here in Europe. I went to one of those, and there's this industrial island. It's completely wasteland, right? And people come there and they just suddenly build a civilization. They build structures, they build toilets, they build amazing dance floors, and they build a huge pool, and they make sure it's the most ridiculous, psychedelic, fucking surreal experience that you can imagine. And everyone goes there, basically they say, oh, it's so nice here, it's so beautiful, like why can't we just go back to the real world and have the same spirit? Why doesn't this happen in the real world, right? Why is this just here? I thought about that question really, and my answer is, it's in your mind. It's actually like that everywhere. It's actually the same. This world is just like a festival. We just came here and we built some structures. And yes, in the festival, it's mainly just focused on fun, but you don't want that forever. No one wants that just party. Right? We need other structures as well. But in principle, this world is just like a festival. It's a bunch of people who created structures for us to enjoy them, to consume them, to develop through them. And so another metaphor for this would be to see the whole crowd of people that are out on the street right now in this moment. Maybe 100,000, 200, 300,000 people in the city right now walking somewhere. And you could see that as one gigantic party. If you don't like the playground metaphor too much, because maybe it implies childhood and being a baby, see it as a party. And that's something the party industry really doesn't want you to believe. That's something all the clubs in Berlin and basically all companies will not want you to believe, because they want to sell you something or to make you feel like you need to buy something in order to have that feeling that it's a party. The club is going to make a very strict and clear line at the entrance. And it's going to say, hey, inside is the party. Outside is the shit. Outside is dark, boring, cold. Don't talk in the line. Don't be fun in the line. Don't be yourself outside. First pay, cross the boundary, feel exclusive, feel like you're part of the selected circle, and then you can be yourself. I'm sure you've had that. You feel really nervous and shitty when you're waiting in the club line, but when you get in, suddenly it's like, wow, I'm in. Yes, I'm the shit. This is all in your mind. And as I said, there are some very strong economic forces that are reinforcing this mindset, but we can break through it. We can say, no, we don't accept that. We don't accept that there is a party that starts here and it's not here. We can see this whole place as a party. And especially that goes for areas where people are actually socializing, where people go to socialize. So I think there are huge advantages to discovering this method, this strategy of partner search, the offline dating strategy, and of fleshing it out and of actually mastering it. And the first one is that you just have incredibly many options every day to meet people offline. If you have trouble visualizing this, then actually count the times in your day where you see someone that you would feel really, really attracted to and that you could imagine being a partner for you. The other thing is that it's actually extremely efficient. People say, oh, it's not efficient, you have to meet so many people, and Well, if you manage to get to the point where you can do it in your everyday life on your way to work, all you have to do is to leave your home 5 minutes earlier. And suddenly you can meet two people on the way. And the big thing is that you're not just matching, you're actually dating them in that moment. You're having a real world interaction. It's a date, you could call it. More a date than a match. Especially if it works out well. And you realize that much quicker through the real world interaction, whether this person is actually compatible. You have so much more dimension. Apart from that, it actually trains your social skills in all areas of your life. That kind of confidence that you develop by talking to somehow intimidatingly attractive people is the same confidence that I'm using right now to talk to an intimidatingly curious and critical and intelligent crowd here. And there are two more things. I'm not sure how to order them because they're both extremely important. The one is that people who are not very photogenic will always get better results by mastering offline interactions. That's where you can play your strengths, your personality, your voice, your eyes. And I had this problem in my life always. I would go on online dating and I would swipe and just not get any results. And I would start to think that I'm not attractive. But it turns out I'm not actually not attractive. I'm just not attractive on photos. And that's a fact. Maybe I should have spent more time and energy getting the right photos. But I didn't like that. I'm not a social media guy. So I said I'll do it in the real world. After a few years of practicing that, I got amazing results and I realized that I am actually extremely attractive, but only the real world allows me to convey my energy. Something that comes from my eye contact. Something that comes from my intensity. Okay. And the last benefit is that actually women that you meet will love it when you can break the norm, when you can actually do what no one thinks doable and do it in a natural, respectful, beautiful, poetic, intelligent, deep way. That's the most romantic notion, of course, of meeting someone. And I was there to this accelerator and I pitched the idea that I'm working on here to the other entrepreneurs, lots of computer nerds. And they didn't believe that it's possible. They said this only happens in movies, man. What are you talking about? You can't meet someone in the real world. That's how far we've gotten. So I challenge you really today to verify this fact if you don't know it for sure yet. When you talk to girls today, at some point ask them, how do you feel about getting talked to in the street? Does it happen to you often? What does it make you feel? Just to verify that, find out for yourself how much they love it when it's done right, of course. But, of course, the question is how to do it right, and that's why we're here. Let's get to some basic mindsets that you can use today and afterwards. But I don't want to over-theorize it, because in the end, you will do much better if you learn this stuff intuitively by practicing it. It's way too complicated, as I said earlier, to map it all out. And that's also when it becomes somewhat mechanistic. And then you can easily get into that widely criticized space of pickup artists who use a certain rule set. You don't want to get there. It's much more sustainable if you learn all the nuances because you've experienced all the situations and you've seen what your body does in all the situations. And that stuff is so much more visceral, goes into your body. You remember it much better than if I tell you something right now. Still, there's one more aspect that you can do after having a basic mindset and doing it a lot of times. You can really benefit from having other people around you who are maybe a few steps ahead of you or who are on the same level and doing it with you. Because then when you're stuck, you can always share, you can always ask. And it becomes a conversation. And conversations are much better for learning than one way. So let's get to the basic mindset that I want to share with you, just to get like a general idea how you go about this, how to do offline dating right. And that is 3 aspects. This is what I tell people when they say, yeah, tell me, man, what do you teach? Like, what do you tell people, right? And I always go back to one tweet where I put it into 3 points because that's the most concise way I've been able to put it. The first point is show your edges. People don't fall in love with boring shit. They want to see interesting, unique stuff. And the good thing is that every human is unique. Every human has weird stuff going on, interesting stuff going on. The problem is that often we suppress that, or we don't want to show that. We are embarrassed of that. And that's a big mistake. You look at big movies, no one really falls in love with a Hollywood production that has mainstream appeal. You fall in love with these crazy, slightly independent, niche movies. Quentin Tarantino, early 1990s, 1980s style, where it's blood splattering and everything is weird. And some people say they don't get it and it doesn't make any sense, but there is a huge community, because the world is big. There's always a huge community of people who like that particular extreme. That's the law of fat tails on the internet. You have really fat tails in the distribution where people like something super extreme. But since there is so much choice when you start actually going out and really love people, you'll find enough people who like the extreme that you are in. So don't hide that, don't round it off. Actually shock that extreme. Especially if you think that it's actually something that is part of you and you are not going to change it, you don't even want to change it, that's just you. Okay, let me give you an example. I had this whole story about how alcohol actually opened me up, but then I didn't want to really use it anymore. It's become a core part of my identity, and it's also because my parents taught me this stuff. They brought me up this way. I don't drink alcohol. I don't drink a drop of alcohol. And that's very rare. There's community here. Some people here also do that. But when you go out there and you meet someone and you tell them, I don't drink alcohol, that's a really extreme statement. They will not believe you at first. Use that. Make that the part of your opening lines, of your first few minutes when you meet someone. Show that the edgiest part of it. That's going to make for interesting conversations. Don't tell them where you're from. Don't tell them what you work. Don't tell them how old you are. That's the boring shit that everyone does all the time. Tell them that one thing that's unique about you. That's the definition of interesting. The second point, embrace rejection. It's almost a corollary of the first point, where if you show your extreme forms, a lot of people will say, fuck that, I don't want that. I mean, if I see a girl and she's sitting there with a glass of wine and I tell her I don't drink alcohol and I actually don't think it's good and I'll never do it, she will probably say, yeah, well, I love my wine, so fuck off. And that's great. Maybe she'll say, oh, actually, I also don't like alcohol. That's amazing. I just drink because my friends drink. And then I have a conversation. But if it's not that case, then I will happily walk away and I will embrace that rejection as a gift. I would say, great, I don't get to spend my life with someone who will always want to drink when I don't want to drink. So embrace that rejection. It's a good thing. As long as you show your real self, rejection is great. It'll save you from a lot of trouble. And it's also just a fact of nature that there are these distributions, and most of the people will not like you, especially not those unique things about you. There's just a small part of people that will like you. So even on the best days, I would not expect more than 2 out of 10 girls that I meet to really be excited about me. That's great, because those 2 are really excited. And the third point is have a clear purpose. That's why I also asked about goals in life. Have a clear goal that you are working towards that doesn't have to do with dating per se. You need to have a vision for your life, something that you really want to achieve, something that you're working towards, and be serious about that. A lot of people here say, yeah, I'm not happy with my job. Make some serious plans of changing that. Because there needs to be something that's much more important than dating. Otherwise, you will shoot yourself in the knee. If you come to a girl and you say, basically my goal in life is to have you, is to have a girl like you. That's just not exciting, right? That's not exciting for the girl because she will say, well, what happens if I actually join you and the adventure is over? You get that? You need an adventure that goes on. It keeps going on. And it leads to some vision that looks cool. And then you invite someone onto that adventure. And in general, just having that vision, not just in dating context, actually orients your life and helps you make decisions. I'm in a relationship right now, and after 2 years, and seeing all these players running around, dating a lot, you sometimes get these doubts, right? Whoa, why am I just sleeping with one woman? I could be going out again, having lots of sex with different exciting people. Well, but then I remember, no, actually my goal in life, my mission is not to have sex with lots of people. My goal in life is to build this company and build this movement and teach people like you to get their relationship and the date life figured out. And for that, it's so much more valuable for me to have one partner, to have a stable relationship that supports me, someone who really gets it, someone who gets along with me, someone who I love, someone I actually get along with every day. It's totally okay, though, to have different goals. And there are periods in life where you will want to have a lot of partners, and that's fine. I think it's absolutely fine. Some want a wife, some want a relationship, some want a girlfriend. Me, I just always knew that in the end, my goal was to have an actual family, and I embraced that part of myself where I'm a bit more traditional. But I knew that I wanted to have someone that I actually liked, and that was so hard for me. It was so hard for me to get to a point where I could say, I can imagine being with this person. That's why I had to go through this process of really mastering the art of getting to know and seducing a lot of different kinds of people. Yeah, as you know by now, I'm not the typical kind of dating coach. I think that's also one thing that dating coaches have in common. They keep dating. They want to practice their skill to the very end. And so most of them are in open relationships or just serially monogamous, and I'm different in that respect. I'm also different in the respect that I don't actually like the words that many of these dating coaches use. I will swear a lot. I do cringe a little bit when people say pickup, just because for me it's so clear that this word is out of fashion and won't help you, won't get you far. I love sophistication. I love reading, man. I love intellectuals. I have a lot of respect for mainstream intellectuals. Maybe also because of my academic background, I'm around with people who are now professors at universities in the US, and yes, they are not as reptile and not as aware of all the social dynamics, but they're so much more eloquent than us. They're so much more educated and in their own way powerful. I respect those traditions, and I respect culture, I respect religion, and I read a lot about Christianity. I respect them because it's built up our society. I respect taste, and I probably find 80% or 90% of what other dating coaches say is like distasteful. Good. But this is one thing that you should all really think about. There's always just a few things that you can be an expert on. And the rest of what you talk about, it's probably not going to be very useful. So it's a huge skill to have to take someone and say, okay, I'm going to focus on that one thing that he's a real expert in, she's a real expert in, and extract that out. And make a barrier at some point and cut off all the stuff that you think is not going to help. Okay, so the goal for this workshop, once again, is to get you guys to a point where you integrate this into your personality, into your real identity, that you can go out and you're in a bus on your way to work, or you're in a bar with your friend, and you just say, wait a moment, I have to go over there. And you just do it in your everyday life. You don't do it necessarily always in this workshop format. You don't do it always with a group. Actually, the second best form of doing it is to do it where you plan it out and you say, okay, today I'm going out to meet women. That's only the second best. Since you can't do that yet, we're in the third best, where we say, let's learn how to even force ourselves to go out. This is a simulation here today. So it's a practice field. Also another playground for us. Try ourselves out. But the goal would be to take it to the second best version of your dating process, where you do it regularly on your own with other friends. You tell yourself, okay, today I'm going out and I'm going to talk to at least 10 people. And then the third, the mastery level, is where you don't even have to force yourself to go out. You just go on the way to work and see someone and you talk. So when I started tracking my interactions, I had this goal of talking to 20 people every week. It's also one of the goals that the coach actually gave me. And in the beginning, I had to reinforce myself. I had to go out. And in the end of the week, on Saturday, I realized I hadn't talked to anyone. So I had to force myself. But by the end of this 1 year where I did that every week, I looked at my phone on Sunday, and I already had 30 interactions, because they were just naturally accumulating through my morning commute and my one evening out with a friend walking around Sil.